Hey everybody, it's Brooke with The Buttered Home and welcome to my messy kitchen. Today we're going to be baking here in the messy kitchen and we're going to show you our version of the best classic Texas white sheet cake that you've ever had. This cake is a great cake for this time of year or any time of year really, as it can be made and decorated all sorts of ways. This is a good base sheet cake type cake for every good cook to have in their kitchen recipe box. So stay with us. Okay, as usual, anytime we bake, it always seems like a lot, but really it's not. So we're gonna start out here with 2 sticks of butter and we have 1 cup of water. So we just got that over medium to high heat and we're just gonna let that butter melt with that water. In the meantime, I have prepared a large sheet pan. Don't ask me the measurements because I just don't even know. But I always like to use extra parchment around the edges because once we get the cake ready to ice, I like to lift it out by the bottom piece of that parchment. Now I take this just a step further, and just to ensure that my cake comes out, I'm going to spray my parchment really well. Now we're just going to set that over to the side and wait until we get our cake mixed up. So we've got the butter melting in the water. And this is such an easy, delicious cake. And like I said, you can take this recipe, we're just doing a classic white icing on it, but you can take it and you can add a little safe food coloring to it and make it a Valentine's Day cake. You can put sprinkles, all kind of things on it for whatever occasion you might need. It's a great multi-purpose cake. So while that butter is continuing to melt, we're going to get our dry ingredients ready. And we have 2 1/4 cups of plain all-purpose flour. Then we have 2 cups of sugar. Your good old standard baking ingredients. Then we're putting in about a 1/2 teaspoon of salt and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. And I'm just going to use my whisk just to sift those together. And this helps get any lumps out too. And if you have a standard sifter, feel free to use it, but this works just as good for me, and I'm using that whisk for all kind of things. So we're good to go on that. Now my butter is almost melted into the water. And don't worry about this being hot because we're going to add some cool ingredients to it as well. All right, so that's nice and melted. So I'm going to pour that water and butter mixture into my dry ingredients. And just do a quick mix just to get that incorporated, which will help cool the butter off. Okay, now we have a 1/2 cup of sour cream. And I'm going to add that in. And that's nice and cool, so that'll help kind of cool that butter off too. Make sure I get it all out of my measuring cup. We're going to add in 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And 2 whole eggs. And everything is nice and cool so my eggs won't cook. Now you can do this in a stand mixer. I'm just going to use my hand mixer just so I can get those eggs whipped in there. It's been fitted with parchment and sprayed well. We're going to evenly pour this into our sheet pan. Now I take it just a step further and just ease my spatula through it. It also helps that you do this on a good, even surface. Now we're going to pop this into a 350-degree oven for about 15 to 20 minutes. It really just will not take it long to cook. I'm going to test it with my internal thermometer to make sure that the cake reads 195 to 200. Then we're going to take it out and let it cool and make sure that it comes up to 205. Your optimum temperature for a nice tender cake is going to be at 205. So your meat thermometer is a good help even when you're baking. So we're going to pop this in the oven and we'll be back to show you how to make the icing, and we'll put it on the cooled cake. So stay with us. Okay, so our cake is cooling. It's absolutely beautiful. Let me get it and show it to you. And it came out at right out 20 minutes at about 201 degrees. So I know that it's done all the way through, and as it cools, it'll continue to come up to 205. Cakes are like anything else. They continue to cook for a bit as they cool, which is pretty neat if you ask me. So here I have 2 sticks or 1 cup of butter that I have melted. And we're going to make our icing while that cake cools. So I'm going to take 4 1/2 cups of confectioner's sugar, and I'm going to start by adding about 2 cups of that to the melted butter. We just want to start this process slowly so that you don't have a lot of lumps, and you can do this with a hand mixer if you'd like. It's just kind of easier for me just to use a whisk so that I can kind of show you everything that's going on. And I'm sloshing butter everywhere. Okay, so see how that confectioner's sugar, we put about 2 cups in there with 1 cup of butter, and it has melted, but it has melted very smooth, and that's what you want. That's the idea here by adding just like 2 cups at a time. Now we're going to introduce a 1/2 cup of sour cream. And put that right in. 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and I'm just eyeballing it. And just a pinch of salt. Now I'm going to get that mixed in and get that started. And that sour cream, once it gets mixed in there with that warm butter, it kind of liquefies as well, so that we can put in the other 2 1/2 cups of confectioner's sugar. Another reason to do this a little at a time is so that you don't make a huge mess. Because if it can be done, I can do it. Now we just lightly work that in, scraping the sides with our whisk, and now the other 1/2 cup. And you've got a beautiful, smooth, white icing. It's gorgeous. And by adding that in a little at a time and putting the sour cream and the vanilla and the salt in during that halfway point as well, we have come out with very little lumps. So a lot of times when you do these butter, confectioner, sugar icings, you know, some people have trouble with them clumping up on them. Now, there are a couple of different tips I can give you on how to keep that from happening. One, of course, is to sift your confectioner sugar. But if you're like me, you don't always have time to do that. So now I'm going to show you how I serve this cake and ice it. So I get another sheet pan and I just lay it on the top. And first, I just carefully flip it over. And because we've got that parchment paper layer in there, you know, you don't have to worry about the cake sticking, which is fantastic. So now we take that bottom sheet pan off. And Just carefully remove that parchment. Now this is always the layer that's kind of iffy because sometimes the cake will bake over it and under it, so you just want to pay special attention to your parchment and just carefully bring it out. Now this is the bottom of the cake, so it really does not matter. So at this point, I leave it on this inverted sheet pan and just kind of carefully, trying not to rip the cake, but it's okay if you do, kind of scoot it over there so that it stays pretty evenly. But if you do better than I did about positioning your sheet pans, then you don't have to so much worry about that. Now I'm going to take this icing and put about half of it in the middle, and then take my spatula and just kind of work it from the center out. But this icing is really easy to work with as it spreads evenly. It's always best to ice a cake if you want it to look frosted when the cake has cooled. This one is not quite cool, but that's okay because I want the icing to be kind of like a glaze as well. So I'm just getting the other half of the icing out of my pan. And like I said, I tend to put it all in the middle because I'll just be honest, I am not the world's best cake icer, decorator, whatever you want to call it. And then like I have that little tear spot over there so you can see how quickly we can recover. Now we're going to let this gorgeous cake to sit so that the icing can set up. And I'm just going to put a little swirl in it just for interest over the top. Now you can do anything you want with this cake. It's perfect just like this. This is the way we're going to have it, but that is a blank slate for you to decorate it as you see fit. And it's a very nice cake because it's a single layer and it's just gorgeous. So we're going to allow this to sit and set up for about an hour, hour and a half. Then we'll come back and we'll taste it. So stay with us. Okay, we're back. We finished about an hour cool time. I just couldn't wait. But y'all, this cake is gorgeous. I want you just to take a look at it. It's so simple, but I already cut a piece and cut it in half so that I could best show you the interior of the cake. That is, if I can get it where I can show you. But it's tender, it's moist, it's delicious, and we're gonna have a bite. So let's give it a try. It's just very hard to beat just a simple classic white sheet cake. And you can do this in a smaller pan, so it's a little thicker. I mean, I can think of a casserole dish, it would be perfect for that. But it's tender and delicious just like this. If you do bake it in a thicker pan, you might want to add a little time to it. Just make sure that you have an internal thermometer on hand so that you can always check that center temperature in there. And if you get to around 195, 200, you're golden. You'll have a good moist cake, no matter if you do a thin cake or a thicker cake. This recipe, like all of our others, can be found over at thebutteredhome.com. We would love it if you would give us a visit there and try this recipe and possibly one of our other hundreds of recipes there. We want to get you in the kitchen, falling in love with cooking, whether it be for the first time or the 400th time. Doing things like this for the people that you love, it's just so much fun and fantastic. And this is a scratch-made cake, so that just takes it up just a whole nother level of love. Also, make sure you're following us on all of our social channels. We have a really good time and we want you with us no matter where we are. And if you want all of our videos in one convenient place, head over to YouTube, search for The Buttered Home, and when you find us, hit that subscribe button and ding the bell so that you can be notified when we drop new videos like this one. All right, Big D's been waiting patiently on this cake, so let me take him his piece, which will probably be the rest of this section right here. He might have a few sweet teeth in his head, but I love cooking for him, and I love watching him enjoy it. And then what this is all about really is loving on people with food. Speaking of love, from all of us here at The Buttered Home to your home, we sure love y'all. Bye.